Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and today we are back on the 911 engine. Okay, so this is actually the second time filming this. I filmed the entire episode today and went to upload it to the computer, or download it to the computer from the memory card, and the memory card died and I lost everything. So I'm going to give you a quick recap of everything I filmed today. It's probably going to be a shorter video, but at least I'll giving you something. I did film, it just is not there. So actually the first thing I wanted to cover is definitely first world problems, I know, but I've been talking to Mrs. Jeff a while now, just sort of going, oh, I'm going to go out and do this on the 911 or that on the 911, and it's, which 911 am I talking about? I've been talking for ages, trying to rack my brains, trying to come up with a good name for the orange car, and now obviously a name for the newer 996. And Mrs. Jeff came up with a fantastic suggestion. So the orange car now is going to be named Harry because it's orange and has a bit of a purple tartan interior. So I think that's very fitting. And the younger version is obviously Archie. So we have Harry and Archie. So from now on, that's how I'm going to reference them. All right, let's go and have a look at what I actually got done today. Okay, so back down here, it's a little bit of a Groundhog Day today. Back here, I was on the wiring again, like I have been for several weeks now, just trying to finish buttoning up the wiring loom for the 911 engine here, and or for Harry's engine, I should say. And what I've come across and found and learnt today was I went to wire up the crank angle sensor and the cam angle sensor, and I didn't realise that there's actually different types of those sensors. I thought they were all Hall sensors or Hall effect sensors, but that's actually not the case. From looking at it, I believe the cam angle sensor is actually a Hall effect sensor, but the crank angle sensor is actually a magnetic or a reluctor sensor. They both work on magnetic fields. One of the easiest ways to tell the difference between the two sensors is that generally magnetic sensors have 2 wires and Hall sensors have 3 wires, because a Hall sensor actually has power coming in, a signal and a ground, whereas the magnetic sensors, from what I understand, aren't actually powered. They're just, they create, because of the magnetic fields, it just reads the difference when something passes in front of the magnet. It changes the magnetic field and gives something the computer can read. I don't know, it goes way over my head. But basically, if you look at a graph of the signal that a magnetic sensor or a reluctor sensor sends, and it's sort of, like a sine wave. So basically, as it gets closer, it sort of starts sensing and sends a signal and then comes back, whereas the Hall effect sensor is basically like a switch, so it's a square wave. So basically it's either on or it's off. So as soon as it sort of gets to a certain point threshold, it flicks and reads either all the way on or all the way off. That's basically my understanding of these things. I understand enough to know that they need to be wired differently, and that's what I went through and did today. So I wired up the cam angle sensor, at the back here, which is the Hall sensor, and I also went through and did the wiring for the O2 sensor on this side. So that's all done now. I had to take another whole bunch of grey. These are digital input wires from the original looms. I stole them over so I can run them onto this. Just trying to use the right size wires to do the job. So that is how far I got on the wiring today, and basically I'm still waiting on, there's a couple of little clips I still need to get, and I'm still doing something about the oil pressure sensor. I've actually been this evening talking to Jamie at Raceworks about the sensor I'm going to use and replace to make the oil pressure sensor. So I do have oil pressure going to the ECU. So as I have finished everything I can do on the wiring, that made me move on and start looking at what I'm going to do about finishing off these individual throttle bodies. So one of the big things with having velocity stacks like this is you need to put some filters over them. They look fantastic, and I wish you didn't have to, but therein comes the issue that I like to be able to see the the bare velocity stacks, but being open means you can suck anything into the engine, and with the amount of money I've spent on this engine, there is no way I want to be sucking junk into the engine. There are a few different options available. I know there are some small filters that just sit on top of each individual stack. I'm not a big fan of them because the big issue with filtering the air is you either have to have you have a really fine mesh, and if you have a really fine mesh over a little small surface area like these things, it's going to create a real restriction on the velocity stacks, or they're really coarse and open and they don't actually filter out enough stuff. And I want to make sure that I filter the air very well that goes into this. Everything goes into this engine. I want well filtered. I want this engine to last for a long time. And I don't want to sacrifice it just because I want it to look nice. Basically, with air filters, the bigger surface area, the better. That's why they even the original factory paper filters are folded backwards and forwards, because they just get more surface area, so there's more area for the air to get through, so you can have something that's quite fine but still flows air quite freely, and that's the plan. So that was my dilemma, is trying to work out, okay, well, I really like the look of these open bell mouths, but how do I do that with still putting air filters on them? And that's why you can see RHD actually supply a kit. So it has the base for a filter and rain hats. So rain hats are actually quite important on a 911 engine, particularly because on the 911, the grill for the engine sits right above here, and the rain can actually come straight through would go straight into your open throttle body. So you really need to make sure you have that bit covered. So that's where the filter comes in. Now, the RHD ones actually take just a regular round filter. I think it's a 300mm, like 12-inch round filter, same thing as you'd get on an old, Chevy V8 or something like that. But you just sort of deform it to sit in there like so, and that sits on there. And then they supply these really cool rain hats that go on top. Now, these rain hats were normally solid, and my big sort of reveal and half of the work I did today was actually cutting out these pieces. So this was actually a solid flat piece with no cutout in it at all. This was just solid. I actually cut all this out today so that it could actually sit on the top. So still would sit and be held up by these little uprights, but then I cut out my nice new carbon fibre rain hats. These are a really nice thing that RHD supply. It's a real carbon fibre. I am not going to leave it carbon fibre on this engine because the engine is already enough colours and people already think it looks horrible. I think it looks great, but each to their own. It's mine. That's why I can do it the way I like. So I'm going to paint this black anyway because there's nothing else carbon fibre in the engine. So the carbon fibre doesn't match with what I've done here. But I've actually done it so that I can sit the thing over the top and you can still see the velocity stacks through the top. And I actually went through and cut out some bits of perspex. This still has the plastic protection on it. So this will actually go in between the filter and the metal supporting plate. Something like so. I'm going to have to silicon down the perspex to the rain hat, but I want to paint the rain hats and everything first, and also paint that plate underneath so that it's all nice and neat and tidy. But I think, here's one I prepared earlier. I think that is a really neat solution. I think that's going to look fantastic. It's a good compromise to be able to see the bell mouths still, but actually have some proper protection for my my engine and actually have some proper air filtration. So that is what I worked on today, and that was basically a full episode that I filmed all day today, and I lost it all. So hopefully this quick recap is sort of covers things for you and keeps you up to date with what I was doing. As always, if you need any Porsche parts, make sure you head to PorschePartsByJeff.com first to compare prices. compare prices there and potentially find a bargain. There's a heap of different shops to choose from, so well worth checking out. And if you want to watch these videos a day before everybody else, hopefully a full video, you can head to patreon.com/homebuilt by Jeff, and there's a link in the description, and you can get to see the videos a day early. All right, guys. Well, hopefully the next one will be a proper video. See you guys.